Hi guys, my name is Tiago Ferreira de Souza. I'm a Portuguese student from BYU, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity now to talk about my speech, the speech that I prepared, and I hope that you all like. So I will talk a little bit about the idea that any new media, or in this case medium, that is the singular of media as a means of communication or new technology, every time that a new medium appears, there is always some panic associated to it, because all new media has been considered a source of fear and admiration. And to try to understand or try to explain better this phrase, I would like to use Arthur C. Clarke's words when he said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is very interesting because magic is something that, since it is an unknown thing, can be considered for some people maybe dangerous, while the admiration factor is simply in magic the wow factor that will amaze the children, the adults, and so on. So first, I would like to outline some of the things related to moral panic. So moral panic theory concerns itself with the ways in which societies construct narratives about perceived threats and the moral causes of these threats. Moral panic often focuses on youth, either their behavior or perceived risks to their well-being. There is a long history of moral panics focusing on perceived harms due to media. So it's very interesting to note that, like I said, every time that a new medium arrives, there is always a lot of bad feelings about them, even if they aren't harmful, as we will see. For instance, if we think about books, Plato, one of the biggest Western philosophers ever, when he was like judging books, he said that books will be bad because if a person will have his words written, he will not need to use his memory. If we advance a lot of centuries during the Middle Ages, people could be killed for reading some books. The power on that time, the Catholic Church, could judge people because of those books, and even state that a reader of those books will lost his soul. If we advance a lot of years, so like last century, a lot of media also was victim of this. For instance, television, cinema, even recorded music. It's interesting to note, for instance, that comic books were considered a dangerous thing, capable of destroying youth's moral. And nowadays, we understand, of course, that those things are only media or medium. They are means per se. They aren't things that can be harmful for us, only if we use it in a bad way. So, speaking on this, it's very interesting to note that the environment of moral panic can create enormous pressure on scientific organizations to promote research, reports, or policies consistent with the moral panics as to combat the perceived threats. So, for the ones that saw my previous video where I talked about video games, I would like to add now video games because they are being like a victim of this moral panic, or at least these constructed narratives that some people have, usually even older people. It's interesting to note that before the invention of video games, and the idea nowadays that video games can be like a disorder or can be an addiction, like some drugs, other behaviors and technologies were considered to be addictive. For instance, computer addiction and addiction to programming caused significant concern in the 1970s and 80s. But these machine code junkies, hackers, and micromaniacs have not been given a diagnostic category as of yet. So during those days, people thought that programming could be considered like a disease. But then there weren't like strong proofs or strong evidence enough to consider it like a disease or an addiction. The same happens now with video games, like I was saying. So there is a current push to institutionalize video game addiction as a formal diagnostic categories in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual here that was emitted by the American Psychiatry Association, and also the International Compendium of Diseases here that was produced by the World Health Organization. So it's very interesting to note that these organizations try nowadays to label video games as a dangerous thing. But in fact, these things came from the stakeholders that are being pressed by some politics or some politicians, precisely because of this moral panic. Because in fact, the moral panic is behind all of these threats, and there is also like a thing like after these news came to existence, there were a lot of buzz on media because media love to have this kind of information. There were a vast group of academics that started to make papers stating that these organizations, that in fact are very well recognized and respected bodies, were mistaken by doing this because when they, if they classify video games as a disease, they will not be using the right framework to categorize them. Since nowadays they are using the framework of gambling addiction, and gambling is completely different from video games. And besides this, video games can be very useful in education to increase grades, learning, reading, and working with abstract ideas. Furthermore, competing research of the effects of playing video games suggests that video gamers enjoy positive personality development and increased stress tolerance. So it is amazing the quantity of things that video games can do, that if these will come to pass, they will not be perceived as a good thing as they are. I would like to finish stating that in fact all of this is because of moral panics. It is not like a real thing. It is a thing that emanates from some people's mind, and in the end this is all a question of generation, because like all those old media were considered to be bad, the new ones will also be considered a good thing in the coming years. It's only a question of generation. So thank you so much for your attention, and have a nice week. Bye.